Confined and chained dogs are a great source of concern for residents in the state of Connecticut. In Connecticut, dogs can be chained 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for their entire lives. Chained dogs are often neglected, injured, attacked by other animals, and stolen. Dogs are social animals, and by chaining and isolating them, it is not only inhumane, but dangerous. Chained dogs are nearly 3 times more likely to bite people. In Connecticut, current law does not provide animal control officers with many options.
I am Senior Animal Control Officer Sparks for the Bloomfield Police Department.
So we're here talking about the issue of tethering and trying to improve the current law. Could you tell us a little bit about the current law and why it's problematic for animal control?
The language of the law that applies to tethered dogs right now specifically states that dogs cannot be tethered for, quote, unreasonable periods of time. The language is vague. It doesn't allow the investigating official to be able to determine that the dog has been there for an unreasonable amount of time if, based on the owner's statement that the dog comes in late at night when no one's there to witness it, there's no way to enforce that. Okay. There is no officer who's available to sit on a house for 24 hours a day.
Okay.
And that's what this law, unfortunately, due to the language of it, mandates.
Connecticut Votes for Animals, in partnership with the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, is proposing legislation to give animal control officers more options to solve this ongoing problem in the state of Connecticut. Chained dogs and the problem behaviors resulting from them are a leading cause of the complaints that animal control officers face each day.
So do you get a lot of calls about dogs that are chained out?
I get a lot of calls about barking dogs. Tethered dogs that are tethered extensively bark. They bark. They're bored. They have no stimulation. They have no socialization. They bark. They vocalize. They want everyone in the world to know that they're out there. And because we live in the world that we live in and everyone lives next door to somebody else, I get a lot of barking complaints, and then they turn into tethering issues, and then I will try and educate the homeowner or the dog owner about the tethering issue. With the law being the way that it is written right now, there is nothing that I can enforce upon discussing it with a homeowner or dog owner. All I can do is try and lean them a little bit in a certain way and educate.
Dogs are social animals that thrive on interaction. In addition to socialization, dogs need exercise and room to move. Chained dogs are denied all these physical needs and suffer greatly as a result. Chained dogs rarely receive sufficient care. Chained dogs suffer from sporadic feeding, overturned water bowls, collars embedded in their necks, inadequate veterinary care, and extreme temperatures. Because the dogs have to eat, sleep, and eliminate in a small confined area, owners who chain their dogs are less likely to clean that area. Often these dogs live without adequate shelter in filthy conditions.
It's a frequent flying dog that constantly gets away from a tether because it's not managed, because it's not supervised, because the dog's left unattended for days. When that dog is off the tether, it is immediately a threat to public safety. Whether it be the approach of an officer, the approach of someone on the street, anything. It's just going to respond out of fear because it has no context. And from a public safety standpoint, that's very tricky to deal with.
What's going on here?
That's Ox. And Ox is outside. He lives outside, and he lives in that igloo.
Does he ever go inside?
I haven't seen him go inside, and my canvas of the area has said that he never goes inside.
And does he have food and water out there now?
He does not. I provide them straw every winter. It's the surest way to get it done without having to go back time and time again and listen to excuses for not having it. Well, right now it's just above freezing. It's about 33 right now. Tonight it'll go down to about 20 or 21. I have real problems with these people. This is the one that I was out chasing before. That's Diamond. and she's an intact female. She has been used for breeding, and she is primarily outside.
And she lives in that box.
Yeah. The problem was today, Diamond got off of her lead and left the property and was chasing people down the street, which is typical of tethered dogs.
So this is where she lives all the time?
This is where she lives all the time. There's actually 3 dogs here. She's in that box, the one in the far back, and the one in the near front.
Oh, but they're not coming out.
They're not out.
From October 2003 through today, there were at least 294 children killed or seriously injured by chained dogs across the country. The American Veterinary Medical Association has also stated, never tether or chain your dog because this can contribute to aggressive behavior.
And then the one in front, that one's name is Dirt.
His name is Dirt?
Yeah, his name is Dirt.
And is there food or water for these dogs?
There wasn't food. There was a tiny little bit of water on the one in the back, which the one in the front can get to. But it's not great. This, again, you know, one of my habitual houses.
And when you seized the other 2 dogs before, that's because they were...
They were really bad, yeah. They were awful. They were emaciated. They were full of parasites. They both had been either scrapped up with wildlife or attacked by a roaming dog. They both had lesions on them. The dog in the rear, the chain has become either kinked around the tree or kinked upon itself, and the dog does not have enough room to actually get inside the doghouse. So I'm going to go do a door knock. This is another house where I provided straw, which was a couple of weeks ago. And the franticness and all of that is just, you know, when you get a dog like this who's just living its life outside, and then it gets off leash, it gets out of the tether, it's just the perfect storm for a threat against public safety. What I have found is that when I have seized dogs for the purpose of just removing them because they don't have food or they don't have water, but they do have shelter and they're a decent body weight, my cases don't go anywhere. The court doesn't know what the proper response is. And unfortunately, that's the only way to address tethered dogs is through the cruelty statute. So,
in some of these cases where you've experienced these dogs living for sometimes years on a 4-foot chain, what are the conditions around the living conditions for many of these dogs?
In my experience, I have found that dogs that are tethered excessively, dogs that are not a family pet, dogs that are primarily a yard guard, they receive so little care. I don't find dogs with rabies vaccinations. I don't find dogs that are being dewormed or protected against anything. I do find dogs, very sadly, that chew their own food bowls for food. They'll chew the wood off their dog houses for food because they're left for 3 and 4 days while an owner is gone and there's no one else to provide care for the animal. Dogs that self-mutilate, you know, they're bored, they're distressed, they're totally filled with anxiety, they don't know what's going on, no one's there, and they start chewing on their own tails, bloody feet. In instances where dogs are left tethered to decks, they hang themselves. The physical fallout from tethered dogs is excruciating. It's excruciating to watch. It's, you know, something that unfortunately you just can't make anybody understand until day after day you go and see what level they've been reduced to.
You can make a difference for these dogs. Connecticut Votes for Animals anti-tethering legislation was drafted with the cooperation of animal control officers and is widely supported by animal welfare professionals. If passed, this bill would strengthen the current law and give officers a means to protect neglected dogs and keep our communities safe. Help create a safer and more humane Connecticut. Call your lawmaker and tell them that you support Connecticut Votes for Animals anti-tethering legislation today.